People get pissed when a YouTuber goes radio silent with no explanation, so here's what happened. My best friend Ben got married, I was the best man, had to write a speech and plan out and attend an out-of-town bachelor party. I had 2 out-of-town funerals, worked late multiple evenings to make up for leaving early to attend all those things, spent a weekend with my girlfriend. I spent a lot of my spare time playing Metroid Samus Returns and Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's Reverse of Arcadia. Papa gets addicted to a good Yu-Gi-Oh! Game. And when life finally slowed down enough to continue making reviews, I played through a completely different game before realizing, oh shit, it's Halloween, and internet law requires that I review a horror game. So here's Nightmare Creatures on the Nintendo 64. The game takes place in October of 1834. A cult has unleashed monsters into London, and the 2 main characters are the only people who can stop it. That is literally all you're told at the beginning of the game. The PlayStation and PC versions have an opening cutscene that gives you a general idea of what's going on, and I'm sure it's written in the instruction booklet that I don't have, but most of the game's backstory is in a prologue that's only in the Japanese version. So here's the story. In 1666, a secret cult called the Brotherhood of Hecate. The Brotherhood of Fuck It was already taken. Sorry, dumb name, had to stop, I'll try again. In 1666, a secret cult called the Brotherhood of Hecate conducted unspeakable experiments on the living and the dead. They sought to create superhumans, but instead they created unholy abominations, zombies, demons, and wretched monsters of all descriptions. They planned to unleash their creatures upon the world, but Samuel Pepys got wind of their plan and burned their headquarters to the ground. The flames spread and burned all of London to ash in the First Great London Fire, but Samuel's brother, still manically devoted to the cult, killed Samuel and took his diary detailing the experiments. Neither Daniel Pepys nor the diary were ever seen again. Over a century and a half later, amid a surge of disappearances and monster sightings, the priest Ignatius Blackward receives the long-lost diary of Samuel Pepys and suspects it may hold the key to the mystery. Ignatius summons his old friend and mentor, Dr. Jean Franciscus, to unlock the diary's secrets, but Jean is murdered and the book is stolen. They learn that the Brotherhood of Hecate has re-emerged, now under the leadership of one Adam Crowley, a mad alchemist who has set the monsters upon London once more, hell-bent on completing the Order's ancient work. Thus it falls to Ignatius and Nadia to stop Crowley and end the Nightmare Creatures once and for crying out loud. Is there any reason why none of this could fit into the Nintendo 64 version? You are given 0 context for what is happening. Nightmare Creatures is basically a horror-themed beat-em-up/adventure game. Your only real objective is to find the level exit. The trick is that while there is typically a linear path through the level, said main path is threadbare and contains few items, so you're encouraged to explore several branching and open paths hunting for the weapons and health items that you need. The game's draw distance is terrible, and I mean Superman 64 level bad. You can barely see a few feet in front of you at any given time. I know that it suits the horror atmosphere, and of course it's supposed to be dark at nighttime, but in a game explicitly designed for you to seek out hidden paths and destructible terrain, it gets tedious running in giant circles just trying to map out one room. The controls are pretty simple. B attacks with your weapon, A kicks, either button while running does a strong lunging attack, and all the combos use those 2 buttons. What's annoying is I can get the basic 3-kick combo to work just fine, but I tried to use the 3-sword attack combo, and I only get 1 slow strike out of it, like the game refuses to acknowledge I've pressed the button more than once. The game uses stiff and awkward tank controls for movement. Left and right turn you in place, while pushing forward or backward moves in the direction the character is facing, regardless of the camera angle. Tank controls are not automatically a bad thing. Shadows of the Empire has aged horribly, but it's still functional because the camera is always behind you. Nightmare Creatures, the camera has a tendency to wander off and stare at walls so you can't tell where you're going. Several levels take place on tight city streets, and if you glance a wall, the camera swivels for a sideways view. If you back up into a wall, the camera swivels to show your character from the front, and later in the game, the camera swivels to the side every time I get into combat. Is this to keep showing you Nadia's tits or something? Just point the damn thing straight! The biggest problem with the camera comes at the first boss, where you have to kill this giant fire-breathing snake thing. It's a circular arena where the camera is locked pointing at the center of the room. You can never tell where you're facing or exactly what direction you'll move, and the controls are so stiff you can barely get around the stage. Navigate a circular level when you can only run straight, and it takes forever to stand in place and turn in another direction, all while the boss covers half the damn level with 5 flamethrowers at once! Shit! 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 And as for the monster's design, I think Ridley Scott's gonna sue someone. The platforming, which thankfully you'll rarely have to do, sucks the big one too. Jumping is awkwardly mapped to the C left button, and when you jump, you travel in a straight line, can't steer yourself, and travel one preset distance. So if you're lined up wrong, or you don't have memorized the exact distance that you travel, you die. Because like many legendary saviors of humanity, neither of our heroes can swim. The biggest problem that I had for the longest time was trying to fight the enemies without getting killed. Most of the enemies move faster than you, have lunging attacks with no telegraph or windup, and launch 2 attacks in rapid succession. Every enemy can hit you clear across a room and slice off huge chunks of your health in a second, leaving you down a third or even half your health bar for one momentary mistake, not helped by the stiff movement controls. But after I tried every button to see what they do, I found out holding C down makes you block, and somehow raising your arms up a little renders you completely immune to enemy attacks. You hold the button and every enemy bounces right off you like your character is balling up going, "Please don't hurt me!" and the monsters all go, "Okay." It even blocks the first boss, slamming about 5 tons of bulk and razor-sharp teeth into you at once. It just bounces off your forearms and does nothing. Literally all you have to do in combat until way late in the game is hold the block button, wait for an opening, and mash A until everything's dead, because the basic triple kick combo stun locks most every enemy in the game. This dirt simple tactic renders every enemy helpless. Jeez, how many hits does it take to kill this blue Hulk thing? Expire, you dumb bastard! Oh my god, this thing is still standing. Oh, he was already dead. The Blue Hulks just pretend like they're still alive until you quit attacking them like a schmuck. That's confusing. Now, the big thing Nightmare Creatures is known for, and the only reason you may have heard of this game before, is that it was one of those first big violent video games like Mortal Kombat that shocked players of the time with its violence and gore. You can stumble across some pretty horrific sights in the levels like, oh, skeletons sitting next to their own disemboweled intestines. Yeah, we're going to find out if YouTube's manual process for reviewing videos is really manual or not. Ugh. But the big reason why is the combat. As you play the game, you unlock new combos and can track down weapon upgrades so that certain attacks cut enemies' limbs off. Early on, you can lop heads and limbs off zombies and they'll keep coming at you, and with the right attack at the right time, you can cut enemies' arms off to render some of their attacks useless. There are also 2 items specifically to mutilate enemies. This saw blade item basically turns enemies into piles of ghibli bits with a single touch, and the most ridiculously specific sticks of dynamite in history blow off an enemy's arms without actually killing them. As cool and briefly hilarious as it is to pull a Monty Python Black Knight on an enemy and watch a Blue Hulk still try to punch you with his missing arms, or watch a Hellhound somehow still walk on all 4s despite missing its front legs, it doesn't have much impact on the gameplay since most enemy attacks involve charging at you and most of them still can deal damage. It's a novelty that barely affects the game, and I barely managed to get it to work anyway. For the longest time, I couldn't get any of the combos to do anything. The game seems to ignore any button I press after B, and any other combos I tried just didn't do anything. Late in the game, I figured out combos only work if you pound out the input as quickly as possible. I got this Cyclone combo that's entered with AAAB, and it only works if I've pushed all 4 buttons before the first attack animation is over. So you have to commit to using a combo before you're even sure if the damn thing will hit. All of the enemies buck, weave, block, and dodge your attacks to where attacks have to be timed very carefully or you miss and take a hit. The extra concentration to try and get off combos just got me killed. So you're honestly better off ignoring all of the combos and just mashing A for basic kicks the entire game. The much less popular gimmick Nightmare Creatures is known for is the adrenaline meter. There's a second meter above your health bar that drains constantly, and once it's empty, your health goes into freefall. It only refills if you kill an enemy because I guess you somehow spontaneously drop dead if you haven't slain a horrifying hell beast in the last 2 minutes. Even the game's fans hate this feature, to the point that the Nintendo 64 port of the game is the most well-liked version, explicitly because it lets you shut off the adrenaline meter. It's a nice idea for a horror game since it kind of puts extra pressure and paranoia into you, but the levels are designed for exploration and you have to search for weapons and health. The adrenaline meter killing you for taking one wrong turn and getting lost for a few minutes directly contradicts the game's fundamental design. Besides, one of the game's biggest strengths is its atmosphere, and you can't drink it in when you're blindly rushing to the end of the stage as quickly as possible. The save system is awful. If you have a memory card, you can keep exactly one saved game to pick up at the level where you left off. If you don't have a memory card or you don't want to wipe that one save, you have to continue by using passwords. But if you continue with a password, it completely wipes out your inventory. I just finished this dock level where the enemies constantly knock you into water that kills you instantly. I sucked ass at this run, so I don't want to save anyway. I have 5 torches, 5 automatic pistols, 2 big balls, 2 small balls. You use your balls to heal, 5 landmines, 7 green potions that never seem to do anything, and 4 flashbangs. I get the password, I enter it in to load the next level, and all my weapons are gone. My pistols and torches that kill enemies in one hit apiece, my landmines, everything's gone except the health packs, and even one of those is missing. I have 1 flashbang left and 1 stick of dynamite, which I didn't even have before, you stupid game. The passwords are too limited to track what items you have, so you get 1 save on 1 level, and that's it. Don't override it unless you're absolutely sure you've got enough items and lives. Speaking of items, if the enemies die instantly when shot or set on fire, is there any reason why Ignatius and Nadia are the only 2 people in all of London who can fight the monsters? Seems like the cops should be able to help out, or even the civilians. Anybody can light a torch. I'm going to be blunt, the combat is not good. There's a great visual variety to the enemies, and the monster designs are really cool and varied, but you fight virtually every enemy the exact same way. Block, wait for opening, 15 to 30 boots to the head. The only enemies really immune to this strategy are the gargoyles, who you just strafe jump their charge and then dispense with the boots to the head. But even though the combat is extremely repetitive and dirt simple, I was still genuinely enjoying the game for a while. The game maintains a pretty creepy atmosphere. Most of the time, the only sounds are a very subdued, creepy soundtrack and the ambient "what the hell is that and where's it coming from" monster roars. Enemies will kill you in a few hits, so you're making your way through levels constantly on edge. You drop your guard for a moment and you could be out some precious lives. There's one stage in a cemetery where cheesy cartoon ghosts rise out of the graves, and normally the sight would be silly in the extreme, but because the enemies are so dangerous and I'm constantly on guard, I was going to myself, what do the ghosts do? 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 The experience of making my way through cool-looking, well-designed levels, carefully fighting enemies, and desperately exploring for as many items as I could get while hoping I didn't run into more enemies, all while creeped out by an oppressive and haunting atmosphere, was pretty fun. I genuinely enjoyed a good chunk of this game, despite its numerous flaws. Unfortunately, the game repeats itself way too much to sustain its creepy atmosphere indefinitely. Enemies get recycled a lot, and even when new enemies crop up, you fight them all the same way. Every level rapidly starts to feel the same, and not just because you're looking at black distance fog void for 90% of the game. And as you do the exact same thing level after level after level, the creepiness and intrigue of exploration wear off, and you're left with a really lackluster beat-em-up. Every stage you poke around, smash everything that looks smashable to look for items, and mash one button to kill the same enemies you've been killing all day, and then you do it all again. You fight in generic London streets over and over, and even varied or cool levels like the prison or the zoo quit adding excitement since they all play exactly the same. I was good and ready for this game to be over when there were still 5 or 6 levels left. There's just not enough depth in the gameplay or atmosphere to sustain its entire length. This may be where the adrenaline mode comes in handy to add more urgency to the gameplay and to keep you on your toes, but still, the gameplay never evolves or changes. It's even worse because there's virtually no story to hold your interest as you fight the same enemies in similar environments for a few hours on end. What little story the game has is told via brief sentences scrolling at the end of every level. Literally every stage ends by saying, "Crowley got away, keep chasing him." All you do the entire game is chase this Crowley asshole over London, consistently missing him and arriving too late to stop him. You track him to the zoo, he gets away. You track him to a prison, he gets away. You find out he raided Samuel Pepys' tomb and you have no idea who that is, but you go to the tomb and you find a message from Crowley in fresh ink implying that he went back to the tomb specifically to leave a message taunting you and still escaped before you arrived. My favorite example is you find out from a random cab driver where Crowley's hideout is, and you go to investigate, and despite the fact that Crowley has no earthly way of knowing that you're going to his hideout or even that you know where it is, he still somehow gets there, burns it down, and escapes before you arrive. We know absolutely nothing about the 3 characters in the game, and there's almost no plot. The entire script is the douchebag is in another castle, copied and pasted until the game runs out of levels. It gets boring and frustrating as you never accomplish anything. The second boss is a Yeti who throws snowballs at you while you pick up sticks of dynamite to throw at him. The camera is fixed so that it's hard to tell where you're going. The Yeti snowballs are timed to stun lock you, and because picking up items is mapped to the weapon attack button, I keep whacking the dynamite with my sword instead of picking it up. The third boss is even easier. You're going through a prison where you fight some guy called Jose Manuel. All you do is operate 2 switches to make walls of spikes close in on him while he throws knives at you. Why would any prison have a room like this? Is this how the death penalty was carried out before the electric chair was invented? The Ripper is dead? What? So despite the fact that the game takes place a full 54 years before Jack the Ripper was active, you still fight Jack the Ripper. The last few levels of the game crank up the difficulty. You start fighting hellhounds that breathe fire, which can't be blocked, and the entire city starts to catch fire. The last few stages, it seems every enemy fight is near flames that lop off huge chunks of your health. You have to be extremely careful where you maneuver, and the enemy AI almost seems to actively push you into the fires. This really comes to a head in the second to last level where you're fighting through a mansion with tight corridors and nowhere to get around the flames. Luckily for me, I had a stockpile of items to fight the enemies, but by this point in the game, enemies attack you in pairs, and not all items work on all enemies. I'm really not sure how you're supposed to fight groups other than very carefully, since the controls are so stiff and the camera doesn't always show you where all the enemies are at once. Finally, Crowley runs out of places to run, and he turns himself into a monster for the final boss. Finally, I get to whoop this guy's ass. Use combos only? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Okay, get this. Crowley is completely immune to all of your attacks except for the very last hits from combos. Those combos that I can't get to work. Those combos that I can't get to work and get the shit beaten out of me while I try because Crowley is lightning fast and the controls are so damn stiff. Nope. I am game sharking this bitch. I literally do not care anymore. Screw it. Infinite lives and infinite items. Golden. Let's go. Do this. Any of Nadia's combos that start with the B button still refuse to work. It never launches more than one attack. And combos that require any movement of the control stick or control pad barely seem to work either. And even the simplest combo that I could find, push forward A and B all at once, dirt simple input, piece of cake. I tried this attack a couple dozen times and it only worked twice. The only combo I can get to work reliably is AAAB, and I can't get it to land. All of my attacks seem to go in a straight line, and Crowley constantly leaps all over the place like a coked out orangutan. I can't get a straight shot. The combo takes something like 3 full seconds to get off the one hit that hurts Crowley, and his attacks are lightning fast and cover huge distances. He interrupts my combos constantly, especially since my hits bounce right off without even faking him flinch. I tried everything I could think of. I tried blocking to wait for an opening, but he's too fast. He hits me before I can get off any combos. I tried dodging to the sides to attack him from another angle, but he immediately turns in place and hits me anyway. I tried getting some distance so that the attack would have time to wind up, but he doesn't sit still long enough to land a hit. The only way I could beat Crowley was to abuse the infinite lives cheat code from the Game Shark, die, respawn, and land a hit on him while I was still invincible. This sucks ass! You kill Crowley and you get a paragraph of text explaining that the fire burned all traces of the monsters and your deeds go unknown. And then some guy picks up Crowley's decapitated head and it's implied that he'll come back to life. So the game ends by taunting you with how the villain got away. Again. Worked for the other 19 levels, why stop now? Once you beat the game, you can replay any level you want with infinite items and lives. You can play as a monster. Most of the monsters suck and the one you get is chosen at random, but whatever, it's cool. And you can switch to Ignatius or Nadia on the fly at the start of the level you select, whereas once you start a new game, you're stuck with your one character for good. I spent the whole game playing as Nadia, so to give the game its full diligence, I decided to try out Ignatius and take him to fight Crowley. And guess what? Not only are Ignatius's attacks much faster, meaning he can actually use his weapon without getting interrupted, not only do Ignatius's attacks move in an arc, so you're not constantly attacking the empty air 3 inches to the right of your target, but all of Ignatius's combos worked perfectly every single time that I tried them. I beat Crowley with relative ease as Ignatius when I could barely beat him with a litany of cheat codes as Nadia. Nadia seems to be so poorly programmed and her straight-line attacks so misdesigned for the gameplay that I was damn near helpless against the final boss. And yes, I know that there are weapon upgrades for both characters and Nadia sucks less if you find all 3, but I only found 1. I can't go back for the others because of how the save system works, and I shouldn't need them in the first place. Bite my white ass and to hell with this final boss! When all's said and done, Nightmare Creatures is okay, slightly above mediocre. The combat isn't great, but it requires enough effort and care to hold your attention. The levels and atmosphere are largely well designed, and exploring dark, creepy levels for items and fighting enemies is kind of fun, but the game really becomes repetitive as you fight the same enemies with largely the same tactics in largely similar environments over and over again. The combat doesn't quite work the way it should, at least not with one of the main characters, I'm convinced, and the stiff controls and problematic camera keep it from being a truly solid beat-em-up. Being able to cut off enemy limbs in combat is cool, but it doesn't fix the problem with repetition, and I think there's been horror games made since that have used that concept better. It's not good, but you won't hate yourself for playing it. When it comes to spooky Nintendo 64 games, my pick is still Shadow Man. But that's a story for another time, so happy Halloween, everybody. It's good to be back.